Anna Manson Network. This morning, we're going to be discussing a very serious topic, and because of the censorship that we face on a lot of these social media platforms, I'm going to have to be very guarded with my words, but hopefully you will be able to catch on to what I'm saying. And I invite you to join me in this discussion of this very pertinent and serious topic. So, we're discussing the community D, right? Community D, the phallus. And it's a couple years ago, some artists came out with some artists from the US. I don't want to name any names, but I think many of us will be familiar with the song Community D, and it has become part of the urban slang. No, no, these one was a full length song, and one was just a little clip, maybe a 2 minute clip. And these men were talking about Community D and the fact that when you have Community D, or when you are Community D, you are able to just go about the community. You belong to everybody in the community. So, she can get, grandma can get, auntie can get, cousin can get. It belongs to everyone. And this is seen by them and by many others as something to be proud about. This whole thing of Black men being, well endowed and, the sexual kings of the world. And what I find is that a lot of our brothers have bought into this myth. They see themselves as legendary when it comes to being endowed. And this is a myth, because not all Black men are so endowed to begin with. There's another myth that, women have a biological clock, and as women age, we are told, do this by X time, because there will come a time when you're not able to reproduce. Now, this is true, but the myth that goes along with that is that for men, they can just go on and do what they want to do, and because they are able to, they might have sperm production up until a later age in life. However, a lot of men will suffer from erectile dysfunction and other conditions relating to their reproductive system, and a lot of this is a direct result of promiscuity in their youth. And this is something that we don't talk about. This is something that we're not honest about, especially men. When I was looking at the comments, when I looked up these two videos about the community D, and I was looking at the scrolling down at the comments, the vast majority of comments from both men and women were that, this is hilarious, this is so funny, this is true, this is my ex, this is my anthem. As a matter of fact, one of them is entitled the Community D Anthem. This is their anthem that they go around chanting proudly. And most of the comments were endorsing this, endorsing it as true, endorsing it as funny, endorsing it as something that men should aspire to, or young men should aspire to, right? But nobody's laughing when these men get to their 30s, some of them even in their 30s, late 30s, early 40s and beyond. Nobody's laughing when they get to these ages and they're ready to settle down, and sexually they're of no use to anyone because of having revved out their engines in their youth. Now, I am among a growing number of mothers who are saying, hey, I am going to raise my black son in a different way. I'm going to raise my black son to understand that his health is as important as his sister's. His mental health and physical health are as important. His education is as important. His safety is as important. We have to re-examine the ways that we have been raising our boys to think that promiscuity is okay for them, whereas we chastise our girls if we see them heading in that direction, but we condone and some of us even promote for our boys to go out and be promiscuous, be the community D, sow your wild oats, not recognizing that who is he going out to practice on? Who is he going out to be the community D to? It's another woman's daughter. So we're sending him out, we're telling him it's okay to go and practice. And yet we don't want that to happen to our daughters. So why would it be okay for your son to go out and wreck another woman's daughter? Right? I know of men who they think it's okay and they actually do it for when their boy becomes a teenager. They will hook him up with an older woman, maybe just a regular friend of his or someone we has to pay for these services. And he will hook up his young son, 14, 15, 16 years old, because in his mind, in the father's mind, he has come of age now. He needs to surrender his virginity. He needs to be exposed to the world because he's becoming a man, and it is the right of men to be exposed to these things. So he will pay or line up another woman to break his son out or to break him in, whichever way you want to look at it, to break him out or to break him in. This same father would not do the same for his daughter. Generally speaking, he would not be he would not think that this is a sane thing to do. So why is it a sane thing for him to do to his son? We have a lot of double standards as it regards our sons and our daughters, and we fail to understand that these are some of the things that lead to a lot of the problems that we see in the relationships when these young men grow up and they have become so numb to sexual encounters. They are so numb, they have seen it all, they have done it all, and then they decide to get with someone in their late 20s, in their 30s. It's as if, she, first of all, if he is still functioning in that area, if he's still functioning, he is so overexposed that there isn't much she can do for him. He will always have these expectations, these unrealistic expectations of her, right? And if, as is often the case, he's no longer able to function because he has revved out his system, what good is he to her, and is that fair to her, right? And a lot of our young men, they spend their entire late teenage years, early 20s, late 20s just chasing these encounters, and they are distracted, so they tend not to be too focused on education. They tend not to be focused on leaving any kind of legacy. And now we find that 70-80% in some cases of college students, college graduates, holders of degrees are women. And this disparity is continuing. So we have to do something to stem this. We have to have a change, right? A paradigm shift in how we raise our young men. And we have to insist that we are going to keep our young Black boys safe and sound, just as we keep our daughters safe and sound. We must insist that our sons deserve it. We have to protect them. They deserve our protection. We are not going to expose them. And we are going to put things in place to ensure that they do not expose themselves. We know that this generation, the technological generation, they are exposed to so much. They have access at their fingertips. Most young persons will have access to the internet on their phone, on their computer, their laptop. Just a click of the keys, just type in, and they are smart. They know how to access it. But at the same time, we have to have discussions with them. We have to guide them, and this goes for both the males and the females. We have to guide them along and let them know that they must secure their mental health and their physical health. We have to encourage our boys to speak up, to ask questions, to cry, to hug, to smile, to be vulnerable, so that when they become adults and they start forging intimate relationships, then they are able to function as healthy adults in terms of their mental health, right? So we as parents, we have to encourage this in our young men. Now, studies have shown that adolescents are more at a detriment when they are promiscuous than even adults. So when you start promiscuity as an adolescent, you expose yourself to sexually transmitted infections. For the girl, she would be exposing herself to early pregnancy in addition to the STIs. For the boy, even though his life may not be as derailed by someone getting pregnant, it does affect him. It affects him emotionally. It affects him if he decides that he's going to, you know, do good by her, as we say. It's going to affect him financially as well. It's going to affect his prospects. And so we also see that when youngsters become involved in promiscuous activity, it affects their mental health. They later go on to suffer from, not everyone of course, but a lot of these youngsters, when they become involved in sexual activity, promiscuity, they go on to suffer from depression, a lot of them, anxiety, substance abuse, because they start, you see, while they're doing it, it feels fine. Everybody else is doing it. They're trendy, they're hip. But as they grow, and we all know this, we are adults. We know as we grow, as we mature, and we start reflecting on some of the things that we have done, you start regretting some things, and then that's when you see that it's taking a toll, an emotional toll on you, and it can severely affect how you relate to the adults in your life, at that time, as well as how you relate to even the children that you're going to produce. So we have to start fostering healthy attitudes towards these encounters, right? We have to let our boys know that they must preserve themselves. Um, it is considered to be comedic almost if you hear a young man saying, "I am a virgin at age 20, even I'm a virgin at age 25, I'm a virgin at age." It doesn't sound so odd for the female to say it, because we tell her she's to preserve herself, she's to save herself for marriage, but we give the boy free run. So for those boys, those few boys who have been guided otherwise and who themselves have decided to preserve their physical health and mental health in that way, they are definitely the outliers. They are seen as comedic. We have seen shows about it. It's hilarious for you to be a male in your 20s and have not had any such encounter. Um, we also tend to, because the male is seen as, traditionally at least, as the one who is going to have to be the breadwinner, the head of the household, traditionally. Whether you agree with this or not, this is what it has been, right? So because he's the one who is expected to fall in place with this, right? It is thought that he needs to be exposed to the world. He needs to know to handle himself in the world so that he can protect his family. And unfortunately, we seem to think that his being able to handle the world automatically means he has to have a string of sexual encounters, as we say nowadays, a body count. And we have totally double standards as it relates to the body count for men and the body count for women. For a woman to say she has a body count of 5, in some circles she can be seen as a hoe. And the more she adds to that, the less her her value in some circles. Now, for a man, his body count can go 10, 20, 50, 100, 200. And it seems that the more his body count is, the more credentials he has, the more esteem he has. He is the man, right? And this is why these guys, who did these videos, the community D video, they were so proudly running around with their signs. I am the community D. You can get, your aunt can get, grandma can get, everybody can get, because I am a black man. I am well endowed. I have the prowess. I can manage. But we are failing to be honest and failing to admit that this affects our men physically and it affects them mentally. And when they get to a certain age, which is not too far from their 20s, when they start experiencing dysfunction and they realize that, hey, I can no longer keep up, I can no longer do this and this and this. I have not put anything in place academically, financially, in terms of my legacy, because I have believed that my D is the solution to all the problems of the world. Black men tend to think, some black men tend to think that because they are so well endowed, they are of the illusion that everybody will, um, they are in demand, and once they can flash this all over the place, just flash it all over the place, it will solve all problems, it will cancel all debts, it will make them immune to every situation. And then when they come to realize that this is not so, it can take as very serious effect. It can have a very serious effect on them when they find themselves in the middle of their 30s, early 40s, with nothing but a limp D in their hand. Nothing but a limp D in their hand. Nothing else to offer to anyone. And there begins the gradual decline to a lonely old age. Lonely, desolate, very sad old age. So we have to decide that we want our sons to have a positive self-worth, a positive self-image. We want our sons to understand that he needs to bring more to the table than his endowment. He needs to bring more to the table than flapping around the D, right? And this is something that Black mothers especially must see to it, because for the men, they are often in denial and they are still suffering from this thing that, my son must play the field, my son must be able, just as I did. It's very hard for them to come to the reality that, we have to have a paradigm shift. So it is going to be mainly in the hands of the mothers to ensure that our sons remain safe, that our sons remain preserve their innocence. Allow your sons to be children. Allow your teenage sons to be children. They are still children. They don't need to be exposed to all of this. They don't need to be exposing themselves to STIs. I saw under one of the videos, because as I said, most of these comments were, oh my God, this is hilarious. This is my new anthem. This is going to be my new ringtone. A lot of them were saying, oh my God, this is my ex. This sums up my ex. A lot of comments were saying, I know this guy. We have several of these men in our own community. They could so totally relate. And I could find maybe 2 or 3 persons who were saying, no, this is sad. This should not be promoted. This is a negative thing. And I remember one of the comments was saying, okay, you're talking about community D, but this is the community AIDS and gonorrhea. And that is the reality. Because a lot of these community Ds, they are running around and going bareback, going raw from pillar to post, as we say, from pillar to post. They don't think they even need to protect themselves, let alone protect all the women, all the grandmas and the aunties and the cousins and the whomever that they're going around to. They're neither thinking to protect themselves nor to protect these women. And so they're spreading diseases around the community. That is the community D, it's the community disease spreader. And the community single parent maker, right? And the community child abandoner. So we have this this rampant, this widespread situation of Black children not even knowing their fathers, because a lot of these fathers were the community D, just going from pillar to post, sowing his seed and having no responsibility, having no sense of honor. And the seeds, the children that he produces, will come and suffer the consequences of that abandonment and turn on the society, turn on that same community. So all these people who are saying, oh, it's hilarious, oh, it's just satire, it's just, it's just satire, they're just mimicking. Yes, they are mimicking what's happening in society, and it's a very bad thing that is happening, and we need to stop it. And it is not funny. It's not funny. It has a detrimental effect on the community. And we should now be in the mode of restoring some sanity to our community. We should be encouraging nation building, legacy making. You don't make a legacy by running around sprinkling your seed. You don't make a legacy by running around and mixing your energy with random people, not caring, about the effects of that. And you know what you find? A lot of these men who are promiscuous in their youth, many times when they become fathers, they are some of the most guarded, especially towards their daughters. And I am saying, let us be guarded towards our sons as well. But when these guys get older and they do become fathers and they remember what they did, they remember how they were rampant, they were on the rampage, and they start reflecting on the damage, they are so guarded of their offspring. A lot of them, not all, because some never come to their senses. Some never mature. Some remain community D up until, for as long as it can have function, they will be the community D, the age-old gray silverback community D for life. But some do start to reflect, and they start to realize that, hey, this is no way to live. This is no way to live. This is not funny. This is not honorable, and we have to do better. We must remember that building your legacy must start in your youth, and we have to encourage our young men, and just as we encourage our young women to protect their legacy, to start building, to ensure their education, it starts in youth, and we have to promote this in our young men. Our young men are failing in academics. They are failing in academics. They are growing now to become dependents, still dependent on their parents and dependent on their women, because they have nothing to bring to the table. And for those women who feel, okay, well, I have no choice, I have to take him up, or for those women who are the Bob builders, build a boyfriend type, they will take them on. But that is no way for anyone to live, whether male or female. to be an adult and a dependent on anyone. You must at least hold up your half of the table. In any relationship that you find yourself, you must be a contributor, an equal contributor to the relationship. That is the honorable way to be. And that is how we must encourage our young men. If they continue on this trajectory, then they will find themselves in situations where they have no say in what happens to them. They will be at the mercy of the women in their lives, of anyone who they seek employment from, because they will not have the credentials. Now, there is a part in one of the songs. There's a line in one of the songs where the guy he kept repeating, I am community D, and there's a line that says, why should you trip? Why should you trip over community D? What is this really saying? Why am I gonna get all why should I even think of committing to this? Why should I even care? So the attitude that a lot of these women develop in response to this community is, okay, all right, we get it. This is who you are. This is who you're gonna be. We might decide to deal with you we're just doing it for fun, for what we can get, but we understand that you're not a serious person, you're not a worthy person. You belong to the community. In Jamaica, I'm from Jamaica, if you're not aware. In Jamaica, we have a saying, dog will have too much yard, no get no dinner. Right? Any dog will have too much yard, him not get no dinner. Because everybody knows you have, literally, if you think of the dog, he can go to that yard, that yard, that yard. So because everybody knows that he's sometimes over there, sometimes over there, sometimes over there, nobody makes any deliberate effort to feed him. Nobody makes any deliberate effort to ensure that he's taken care of, because everybody expects that someone else will do it, right? So all of these community Ds, all right, even if people start off caring, once they realize that this is who you are, this is all they're going to get, and if they're willing to tussle with you, they understand that it's just for the moment, it's just for fun. Nobody's going to invest any emotion in you after a while. They're just going to know this is what you are. And why trip over you? Why trip over the community? Somebody else will take care of you. Somebody else will trip over you. I'm not going to invest, because they are going to realize that, hey, this is someone whom we have to protect ourselves from. You're going to be seen as a liability. And to you right now, you might think, oh, it's cute, it's fun, I'm just having fun. These are the days when I can just go about and have fun without any commitment, without any attachment, just be a rolling stone, just be a dog with many yards. Well, you might come a time when you want some dinner and nobody has any for you, because everybody thought somebody else would provide for you. Everybody thought someone else would take care of those needs that you have. And it's not the sexual needs here I'm talking about. It's those personal connections that you think you can do without, but you later realize that you need. And everyone will assume that someone else was taking care of them for you, because you put yourself out as belonging to the community. So everyone will assume that someone in the community, not them, someone will take care of you. And if everyone assumes that, then you know who is going to be left out in the cold, right? That's going to be you. No one is going to trip over you because you have declared yourself as worthless. You're not worth the time, you're not worth the effort, other than to have some fun. And you see, this kind of behavior, you're seeing it as just having fun, but you don't realize it can become a compulsive and a pathological behavior, to the point where when you are ready to stop, you can't stop. These kind of things are addictive, compulsive, and when you are ready to settle down, I saw a meme once with the meme says, "This is the typical black man. I'm ready now to settle down." And in the picture, he is this old, decrepit um, man, fully gray, in his wheelchair, useless, broken down. And he's saying, "Okay, I'm ready now to settle down." And they're saying most black men have this notion that, okay, in my young days, I'm vibrant, virile, I'm going all over the place, I'm the community D, I'm available, I'm the man. And they give off their energy to people who no longer matter to them within a very short time, because there was no foundation, no real commitment. So the best of you goes to people who no longer matter. And now you are ready to settle. This person whom you have chosen to settle with is going to get the worst of you, the dregs of you, the remains, the bottom of the barrel of you. Is that fair to that person? You must preserve and conserve the best of you for the person who you are going to settle with, just as you want them to give the best. And a lot of these broken down men, in their arrogance, they now will go and they want a young, fresh woman to settle with. But there's a saying, wherever you go, there you will be. Wherever you go, there you will be. So you're going to carry all your problems, all your bad energy to this young, fresh woman. And there will be nothing but problems for you. That's for another discussion. We can talk about all the problems that you create for yourself as a grown man going to hook up with this young woman. That's for another discussion, right? But we definitely must do better. There is something I want to share with you. It's a little bit off the path, but not so much, because it talks about single mothers, and many of our black women are single mothers as a result of the fact that a lot of the fathers saw themselves as a community D and went around sowing his wild oats and created these single parent households with just the mother and her offspring. So I want to share with you something that I wrote exactly 3 years ago. It was a response to a friend of mine, a male. He posted a question on his Facebook page. It popped up this morning because it's exactly 3 years ago. So it was a Facebook memory. It was written January 15, 2020. So exactly 3 years to the day. So my friend was asking the question. He put it out there to us. Is it a deal breaker? He was putting it to the women. Is it a deal breaker for you if you find that the man you're interested in was raised by a single woman, a single mother? And I'm going to read my response to you. And, it is worded, but this is how I typically respond, even on Facebook. I'm a writer, so I can't help myself. Right? And the reason I think it is relevant to this discussion, even though we can have another discussion on single motherhood and what that means, so we can have a discussion on that. What is relevant to this one, because here I am saying that we as women must take on that mandate to raise our boys with a paradigm shift, raise them with a new mentality that they must protect and preserve themselves, right? It's going to be a lot of single mothers because of the situation, this vicious cycle that we have put in effect, right? So it's going to be a lot of single mothers who will have to take on this mandate. So I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share the screen. So while I'm reading, you can read it as well with okay, I'm going to share the screen with you. All right, so let me just check that it's up. Okay, so while I'm reading it, you can see. So this was the question my friend posed. Is it a deal breaker to you women if the man you're interested in was raised by a single mom? And my response is, men who were raised by single mothers should be approached with caution, but not necessarily with trepidation. I've interacted with many men who were raised in fatherless homes, and I've noticed that they fall into one of two very distinctly opposite categories. They are either the better or worse for the experience. The lack of a father in his life can make a man resolve that his children will never lack a father, will never have to endure the alienation, and will always feel safe and provided for. He will observe healthy family relationships around him and resolve to emulate and replicate such. He will actively seek out mentorship and self-help resources in an attempt to steer himself away from the dysfunction that has been his lot. Conversely, the lack of a father in his life can make a man feel that since he survived and is doing okay, his presence is not needed in his own children's lives, and he is not required to shoulder his financial, emotional, and moral responsibilities towards them. If he finds himself in a household, he is very likely to leave all the weight of child rearing on the mother, perhaps even the household chores that are considered the realm of men. He saw his mother having to tend to all of these. He is more likely to stir up and prolong arguments. He is more likely to expect to be kept by a woman, financially and otherwise. He may have been spoiled rotten by an overly doting mother who did her best to compensate for the lack of paternal affection in the home, referring to him as her one and only husband. He may not have been required to help with chores and other responsibilities. He may also have had his self-esteem eroded by being the brunt of chastisement because he happened to look like a worthless pooper. In Jamaica, as a saying we have, when a woman tells her son, you look like a worthless pooper, Usually she's saying, you resemble your dad too much, and because I hate him, I'd have a tendency to hate you as well. You look like your worthless papa, your worthless father. He may have been bashed topside his head when the weight of single motherhood left his mother unable to provide for him, and he just happened to do something stupid and get underfoot the way children do. Even if he does become a provider for the family, he is likely to feel that this is all that is required of him, and the protective and nurturing male qualities will be neglected. That said, I don't believe that children necessarily need biological fathers in their lives. What they need is at least one, but preferably several, positive and consistent adult male presence. They need to see their mother being loved, being protected, and being respected by men. Throughout the house and community and village, they need to hear deep, husky voices that, together with the softness of their mother's lap, combine to make them feel secure. I'm going to read that last line again. Throughout the house and the commune and the village, they need to hear deep, husky voices that, together with the softness of their mother's lap, combine to make them feel secure. All right, so I wanted to share that with you. It is exactly 3 years old. Came up as a Facebook memory this morning, right? And it is pertinent because a lot of our women are single mothers. This is a direct result of the community deed. This is a direct result of the community deed. These men who were just running around, and many of these men are our grandfathers, many of them are our fathers, who maybe they were with our grandma or our mom, or maybe our grandma and mom were the side pieces, as they are called, right? So maybe they were the wives, and you grew up in the home that was known, the home that was established, or maybe you were in one of those houses down the road, across the street, in the village beside yours, whom he frequented, or maybe just once, and you were the product of that, or your mom or grandma was a product of that. It is something that it has been rampant in our community, and we have tolerated it, we have condoned it. In some instances, we have celebrated it. In some instances, we have celebrated these men as the kings, the virile ones, the well endowed ones, the macho ones. And we now need to understand that they are a liability to us and to themselves. They are a detriment to the community and to themselves. They are the cancer in the community. And we must raise our sons to be different, to be completely different. We must raise our young men to have self-respect, to have self-esteem, to have standards. We must raise our young men to be able to refuse when they are offered things that will be of no value to them, no real value to them. They must be able to say no, just as we raise our girls to say no, to resist, to complain, to avoid situations that will make them vulnerable. We must raise our young men to say no, to resist, to complain, to avoid situations that will make them vulnerable, because they will suffer as a result of it. They will suffer physically, they will suffer emotionally, they will suffer mentally, and they will bring this burden with them into their relationships, into their households. And they will, when they finally decide to settle, and I dislike that word settle, but when they do finally decide to settle, they are going to bring a broken, worn out, revved out, dysfunctional man who is not deserving of someone who has preserved herself, who has conserved her energies, who has secured her legacy. He's not deserving of that. And we should inform our daughters not to accept that. We should inform our daughters that when they see these men limping in their direction, they should turn and run. They should close the door, because the community D does not deserve. He does not deserve someone who has preserved herself and kept herself safe and kept herself viable. He does not deserve that. We should inform our daughters to close the door when we see these dysfunctional men limping in her direction. Slam the door. So it can't be one-sided. We can't be telling this half to preserve, conserve, keep pure, keep whole, and telling the other half, go ahead, wreck yourself, deplete yourself, expose yourself. And then you want them to come together. How is that fair? That can't be fair. I am teaching my sons to keep yourself whole, keep yourself honorable, keep yourself sane, keep yourself healthy, so that you are deserving of the woman who is doing the same thing to herself. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame for a young man to have had no sexual encounter in his 20s. There's no shame in that. There's honor in that. There's self-preservation and sanity in that. Teach your boys to respect themselves, to respect their bodies. Be honest with them. Be honest with them and let them know what is going to happen when they rev themselves out. They will lose sensitivity. They will lose function. They will lose value for the thing that they should value when they become involved in a serious, committed relationship. Overexposure leads to lack of sensitivity, right? Overexposure leads to numbness, leads to lack of value for that thing. Yesterday, on my Jamaica program on the same network, one of the proverbs, one of the wise sayings that I looked at was, "Too much of one thing, good for nothing." Right? This is something similar. Too much of one thing is good for nothing. And our boys are so overexposed. They are so numb. They are so cloyed. It's good for nothing. So let us put a stop to this. Let us insist that we are raising young Black kings. We are raising young Black kings. that's the message that I want to leave with you this morning. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to me. I encourage your comments. How do you feel about this whole concept of the community deal? Is it a good thing for our young men to think of themselves as a community deal, to be going around servicing whomever asks, whosoever will may come? You're available. You're just always there, always available. You're ready. We're ready when you're ready. Is this okay for us? Is this how we want our young men to be? At the drop of a hat, they're ready, no matter who, no matter when. I remember hearing a young man say, all he wants is a place. When he's approached by a woman, all he wants to know is he has a place. He can jack it up anywhere, anytime, anywhere. Whether in a car, in a tree, in the sea, on the road, in a corner, in the alley. Ever ready, ever ready. Is that okay? Let me know what you think. How do you feel about it? Until next time, when we have another interesting and pertinent and serious topic to discuss. This is Kamau, and I will see you next week. Take care, and let me have your comments. And also, go on over to YouTube, subscribe to my channel, Kamaudacity.